Okay. Hey, y'all. Just going to wait for a few people to join in. So, nice to see everyone. Hey, Sean. Thanks for coming in. This episode is brought to you by my non-sponsor, Tito's. So, I'm going to have fun. Hey, Tashawn. How are you? Thank you. Just getting a few seconds. I still don't believe it. I know, right? Who makes this shit up? I'm sorry. Who makes this stuff up? It's a rated PG, but no, it's a rated M. Hey, Mr. Timothy, how are you? Happy vacation. Oh, there you are. Come on over. So I have a friend of mine, LaShawn. I pegged him as my, what are you today? Look at him.
I don't know your publicist.
He's my publicist today. So we're going to have a conversation. Those two were meticulous about their money and didn't have a will. Right, exactly. So we're going to talk about that. So I have LaShawn here. He's going to chime in whenever he feels like it. So I'm actually talking to you, LaShawn, and everybody else, even though I'm not looking right at you. I actually see you. You're right there.
I see you too.
You see me? Okay, good, good. So long as we see each other.
We're good.
We're good. So if you haven't heard yet, which I'm sure you have, Aretha Franklin passed away, of course, recently. But she passed away intestate, okay? Intestate means that she died without a will, which surprises a lot of us. But hey, I guess it shouldn't be a surprise because Prince died without a will, right? Which caused all that confusion as to how we're going to, you know, do the assets and everything. And now we find out that Aretha Franklin allegedly does not have a will or one that they could find. And therefore, she died intestate. Intestate means that you die without a will, which means the state gets to control how your assets are going to be distributed. Which, when you have $80 million, LaShawn, do you really want the state to determine how your assets are going to be?
No, you shouldn't.
Right. So, you know, even in my case, I don't have $80 million yet. But with the assets that I have, whether it's 401k, whether it's my savings account, whatever it is, I don't want the state to determine who's going to get my money. I want to have a say in that. So I wanted to talk to you all about, you know, wills, trusts, and life insurance. Oh my. Because unfortunately, those are three subjects that the African American community just does not want to talk about. We want to talk about leaving legacy wealth, and we want to leave an inheritance to our children's children, but nobody wants to talk about the planning of the death or the planning of the estate, right? So, you know, let's have this conversation, because it doesn't always have to be about death. It could be about life, but it could also be about legacy building. And so what I found of our counterparts is that they plan legacy wealth. And a part of the legacy wealth is the estate planning. A part of the estate planning is the wills, the life insurance, and the trusts. That's how they can create trust babies, right? So it doesn't, you know, I had one client who did not have a lot of money. He had $1 million worth of life insurance that he paid for. And he did a long-term policy, right? But he kind of knew that he probably wasn't going to live to 90 or whatever. But he got a term policy, 30 years. It was $1 million policy. He really didn't, he was cash poor. He didn't really have a lot of savings or whatever. But what he decided to do was he decided to establish a trust and make his children the beneficiary of the trust, LaShawn, right? And so when he passed away, the $1 million would go into this trust, and the beneficiary would be his children. So he pretty much created trust babies, right? But this man was cash poor. He was cash poor, right? So how he did it was the will said where the money was going to go, how all the assets were going to be distributed, And when you have a life insurance policy or any type of savings or whatever, your beneficiary actually trumps everything, right? So it may say it in the will, but if you have a beneficiary on the account, it goes to the beneficiary. I'm going to talk about beneficiaries in a minute, right? So LaShawn, have you ever dealt with some families or known of some families where they didn't have anything, they didn't have a will, they didn't have life insurance?
I mean, yes, but I'm thinking on something on a total different.
Okay, what are you thinking about?
And I guess because I'm in development, so my question first of all is, whether it's Prince, whether it's Aretha Franklin or whoever, did they have outside of the family, so the children, immediate family, so outside of that, but did they have any charities that they supported or were really passionate about?
Okay.
So in my line of work, so from a person who's in fundraising, who does development work, whose job or part of the job is to really basically ask for money from wealthy individuals, was that even a conversation possibly that was ever had with them to say, look, when you die at whatever point that is, that you actually have, whether it's a will or trust
life insurance or whatever,
life insurance or whatever it is, that you leave so much to that charity or those charities?
That's a very good question, because you may have someone who does not have family. They may have outlived their family, so they don't really have anything to give whatever to. They can definitely give it to a nonprofit organization or some type of organization that they're really passionate about, or an alma mater. It could be their school that they're really passionate about. So I had several clients who, they have life insurance policies, but they didn't have children. They didn't want to leave it, they didn't have brothers and sisters, and their parents passed away. And so they wanted to leave it to something that was very significant to them. So they left it to whatever nonprofit organization that they were passionate about, or they made the beneficiary their alma mater. So that's a real conversation. And you know who primarily does that? Caucasians. They do that. They send they give beneficiary to those type of organizations, right? But they're planning that. It's an estate planning process. And a lot of people, LaShawn, think that you have to have hundreds and thousands of dollars in order to, Courtney, in order to leave something to someone. You don't really have to have hundreds and thousands of dollars. You may have a 401k. If you don't have any family, you don't have any children, you're single, your parents are no longer here, whatever is left, if you're no longer here, you may want to give make the beneficiary of your 401k your alma mater. Shout out to Delaware State University.
I mean, that's part of legacy building, and that's why you have a lot of, I think, your PWIs. That's why a lot of them have their bank or their endowments are so large, is because they've had these generations over generations over generations who have left these wills and made these endowments to the universities. So where in our community, typically when you look at a Delaware State University or any other HBCU, really when you look at it from that standpoint, for MSIs, predominantly black colleges or whatever the case is, we just had that historical record, that is longevity, where you have families leaving their wealth as and leaving these institutions as their beneficiaries. And it's not just HBCUs in the college world. It could be any charity that you name, pretty much.
Exactly. So, for example, you have all of these big colleges that have these huge endowment funds. So what their mindset is that if I don't have family to leave it to, I'm going to make sure that other people have the opportunity to go to this college and I'm going to foster their future. I'm going to be able to fund their future. You know what I mean? And so even as African Americans in the community, and the reason why I'm speaking to African Americans is because I'm African American. I'm black, dude. It's my community. So HBC. Okay, we back. Okay, so if it's HBCUs and I'm passionate about HBCUs, wouldn't I want to leave something to an HBCU to help other African American students have the same opportunities that I did? So that is one aspect of legacy building. The other aspect of legacy building is, what if you have children and you want your children to go to college? You want to be able to take care of them. God forbid something happens to you when they're little kids. Who do you want to take care of your kids? Now, here's an example, and it's very, LaShawn, is very far-fetched, which I hope. So, say, for example, we're going to use us as an example. I know you're not out here trying to be on the Facebook Live now. Oh, okay. Okay. I have somebody who needs to be on Facebook Live that is not trying to come on here. Yeah, but we're not going to talk about that. So, let's pretend... Now, LaShawn is a really nice guy, y'all. See, he's cute and everything. He's really nice, right? But just for this example, say we marry, right? And he's abusive. Like, he's kicking my butt, like, for real. And we got kids. I know. I know. Shh, I got you. And he kicking my butt, right? And I got kids. We got kids, right? And so I leave him because he's abusive, right? I leave him. But I don't divorce him, but I leave him. I have the kids. And then all of a sudden, God forbid, something happens to me and I pass away, right? If I don't have a will and I die intestate, the state determines where my babies will go. And because he is the closest living relative to them kids, they could give them kids back to this abusive man. Not saying he is, just an example, right? Do you want your kids... Do you want the state to determine where your kids go? Hell no. How do you cure that? You just have a will. Okay? Several things. One of the questions, LaShawn, was, what if I don't have any assets? Why would I need to have a will? Well, you usually have some form of assets. You may not have millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank or 401k, but you may have a car. You may have a house. You may have some form of assets, and you may want to give it to somebody. You may not want to give it to your sister because you really don't like your sister. You really can't stand your brother, but they're the closest living relative. So the state's going to be like, here you go. Okay. So what happened, LaShawn, with Aretha Franklin was, it's now in probate and intestate. The state has to determine how to divvy up her $80 million, right? She has 4 sons, I believe, 4 children. They both applied in there. The problem that I have with that is that if the state says, I'm going to equally distribute the money to each of these children, one of her children, I believe, is special needs. He's going to need care for the rest of his life. He's an adult, but he's going to need care for the rest of his life. So the fact that she didn't have a will, who's going to take care of the child? Now, somebody may step up and say, I'm going to take care of the adult. I'm going to do this or whatever. But as a mother...
But even with that, though, if that child has special needs, what confidence do you have that they could actually make the proper decision with that being
right? So if you give them the money and you don't even have a trust to determine, and I'm going to explain the will versus a trust, how are they going to determine that? So now you're giving them $20 million, but one of the brothers is going to take care. I'm going to take care of you. So now the brother has control of his $20 million and the other son's $20 million. Is that fair? And it may be. It may be. But the fact is that you should be able to control or to determine how your assets are going to be handled, especially when it deals with your children, right? Like in my case, I may not have millions of dollars yet, but the money that I do have, I'm not going to just leave it. I'm not going to allow the state to just give it all to my son. I don't know yet how he will handle that because of his needs that he has, special needs, mental health, whatever, right? So what I've done is I have the life insurance, I have all the assets, and the beneficiary is the trust, right? But he's the beneficiary of the trust, okay? And so what I found out is that a lot of people in our community, we don't talk about wills, and we don't talk about life insurance because we don't want to talk about death, right? We don't talk about trust because we don't understand trust. Have you noticed that, LaShawn?
I have.
So we're going to break it down to everybody, okay? The will tells how to distribute all of your assets, how to, who to give who to, what to give who to, who guardianship, your legal assets, your financial assets, or whatever. So the will says how you want it to be distributed, or where you want it to be distributed, right? I had Courtney says, when I had a virtual summit, I had someone to speak about how you would want to be taken care of before you die. So this is an important. Yes, we're talking about living wills, Courtney. Don't let me forget that. Living wills, okay? But let's talk about the will when you pass away, right? So it tells where to distribute everything. The trust gives you the control from the grave. It tells how to distribute it. So for example, you can get $20,000 when you graduate from high school. You can get $30,000 when you graduate from college. So you can control how the money is distributed from the grave through a trust, because the executor will execute your wishes of the trust, okay? And there's two types of trust. Now it gets boring, right? So you got a revocable and an irrevocable one, right? You got a revocable one where you can say, nah, this ain't working for me, I'm gonna shut it down. You have an irrevocable where you can't shut it down. It can't be revoked, right? Now you can do some legal action to revoke it. That's a whole different other conversation, and we'll have one specifically about trust. But right now, what I want you to really focus on is the will. You need to tell where you want your stuff, your assets, your children, your money, where you want it to go. Because if you don't, the state will dictate it, right? So, LaShawn, did you know that each state has a different law regarding wills?
Yes.
And some of them don't interstate, right? There are some that may interstate, like if you pass away in Florida, you may be able to transfer that will to another state, maybe or maybe not, right? But if you pass away in Georgia, but now you live in Delaware, in my case, they may not interstate that will, because there may be different laws regarding that will, right? So the whole thing about a will is it's based on where you live. So if you relocate, you need to update your will based on where you reside. Because if you have a will in Georgia, but you pass away in Delaware, and you live in Delaware, you're intestate in Delaware. Does that make sense? Right. So you need to know stuff like this. This is stuff that we're not taught in colleges. We're not taught by our family members because nobody taught them. And it's stuff that we really don't want to deal with. But once we deal with it, we set it, we can forget it. We don't have to have this conversation anymore, right?
So how would you recommend someone differentiate when they should have a will versus a trust?
You may want to have both. You may want to have both. And if you have lots of assets, you definitely want to talk with a trust agent or executor at a financial institution or an attorney to establish that trust when creating trust babies. But here's the thing. You may not have a lot of money right now, but you may have a life insurance policy that has a lot of money that you're going to give to the beneficiary, right? So at that point, there's going to be a lot of money determined. Now, do you want the child or the person that you're leaving the money to get access to $100,000 or $1 million? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, I've seen some people that were left $100,000 and in 6 months, it was gone. So if you know that they're probably going to squander it, but you want to help protect them throughout the life, the trust will help you to determine how you want that money to be spent. Like this will go for college education only. This is, it's a trust, a scholarship. It's a trust fund, but it's a scholarship for the children in our family. I'm an auntie. I don't have any kids, but I have nieces and nephews. I'm going to leave the trust. The beneficiaries are going to be my nieces and nephews, but they can only get access to the money if they go to college. And that money will be distributed to the college that they go to. So you can determine where you want. You can say, son, when you buy your first house, you're going to get $20,000 towards the down payment of your home, right? So if you want to establish a trust or learn about a trust, and I believe in most financial institutions, LaShawn, you can open up a trust with no money. because the trust will be the beneficiary of a life insurance policy, maybe a beneficiary of a 401k or something like that.
Okay.
Right? So, I already answered a lot of the questions. What is a will? Let's see. Yep. Okay, so now let's talk about the living will. Let's talk about the living will. So your living will would pretty much say if you are incapacitated, if you are sick, if you cannot communicate, if you cannot do anything for yourself, who gets to make those decisions? Now, it could be a power of attorney that you may have. There could be several things. But your living will says if you want to be resuscitated, if you want to, there's several things a living will say, you know what I'm saying, which calls for the power of attorney or whatever. And the reason why most people don't have a power of attorney is because they may not have a living will. Okay? So your living will is you're still alive, but you're incapacitated. And so if someone doesn't have a living will, you can probably do a power of attorney, but the problem with the power of attorney is that they have to be coherent enough to sign off on the power of attorney. You see what I'm saying? But if you have a living will and say, I want this person to handle this and this, if I'm incapacitated, the power of attorney doesn't really have to happen, or it's going to be easier to get with that. So again, you want to deal with these things. You want to set it so you don't have to worry about it anymore. Now, one person asked me, how, LaShawn, well, I'm going to ask you, LaShawn, how often should we update our will, our beneficiary, you know, those type of things, our estate plan? How often should we update it?
I'm not sure about a time period, but I guess you could look at it from a standpoint of, I guess I'll just say something major happens regarding one of your beneficiaries, or you know, if you have a time period, maybe yearly, bi-yearly, every 2 years, or you just establish a time period that you want to just review it. It may not change, but at least just review it. But I would definitely say if anything major happens, and that could be a broad range of things, I know, with any of your beneficiaries, to definitely review it, because you might have some people that you might not want to be a beneficiary anymore.
There you have it. So absolutely, if there's a major transition in your life, whether it's marriage, divorce, a new baby, a death of a family member or a spouse or a child, there's several life events that may happen. For example, I had on most of my beneficiaries was my mother, right? My mother passed away 2 years. So I had to update my beneficiary to my son and my sister because my mother was no longer here. And so what I recommend is that there are 3 B's that you should at least acknowledge and look at on an annual basis, right? Yeah, annually. You do a financial checkup. You do a financial checkup on your brain, your mental health, your body, your physical health, and your beneficiaries, which is your financial health. So, for example, I had this one client who was married. They were happy for a period. He got divorced. He married someone else. Unfortunately, he passed away. His 401k's beneficiary was, guess who? His ex-wife. He did not update his beneficiary on his 401k. And the beneficiary, excuse the jargon, trumps the will, okay? So the money, the 401k money, went to the beneficiary that was on the account, which was the ex-wife, whom he did not like, and the wife did not get anything. She got life insurance and everything, but she didn't get the 401k, okay? So it's important that you update that on a, you know, review it at least on an annual basis. It may still be the same, but you still want to make sure that it's correct. You know, we may get married. I love him. I make him beneficiary and everything. He gets on my nerves. I divorce his butt. I don't want him beneficiary anymore. But if I don't look at it, he gonna get all my money. I mean, he cute and all, but really, seriously, he gonna be happy though. Look at him, he happy. Like, yeah, don't update that beneficiary. You ain't gotta look at it. You good, right? No, that ain't gonna happen. So those are the things that we as an African American community, we just need to look at. If we want to legacy build, if we want to leave an inheritance for our children's children, we have to deal with the estate planning process. We have to talk to a financial professional, a licensed financial profession. Now, here's the thing. I'm a licensed insurance agent, but I just don't sell it anymore. I keep my licenses just to educate, but you've got to get with someone who is a professional and licensed in that area to help you. Now, what I will do is, for anyone that is interested, just put me in the comment section. I will send you a template of a will. I will send you a template of a will, okay? It's a basic template of the will. But you do have to make sure that it complies with each state. You have to update the state of where you reside, okay? Where you reside, okay? So, and then get it certified. You will have to get it notarized, so it's a legal document. Just make sure you have that as well, okay? So, definitely, if you are interested in this, just say me. If you don't want anybody to know you need one, inbox me. I don't want you to feel like you have to share all your business. You can inbox me and say, can you send me, a copy of this? It's not about feeling, because, most African Americans, we do not have a will. We do not have the appropriate life insurance. We definitely don't have trust. And that's something that we need to do when we want to start. When we talk about legacy building, that's what we need to do. And it doesn't have to be hard, okay? So maybe tomorrow, I'm going to talk more about life insurance, because a lot of people equate life insurance, LaShawn, to death insurance. And life insurance doesn't have to be death insurance. You know what I'm saying? You can utilize life insurance while you're still alive. It could be, an investment, part of your investment fund. You could use it a part of your retirement fund. If you get sick or whatever, you can use it when you're sick or whatever, and incapacitated. So there's several ways that you can use life insurance while you're still alive and have a death benefit tied to it. So yeah, so I want to talk about, maybe I'll do this tomorrow, talk about the differences in life insurance, the different types of life insurance. It's almost like the different types of real estate, right? You have different types of real estate that you invest in. There's different types of life insurance you can invest in, and it doesn't necessarily have to be death insurance. We can look at it and have life insurance. Okay. Ignored. Okay. So I hope you got something.
Tell them to call you if they don't want to inbox you, if they don't want to take me in the comments. Tell them to call you.
Yeah, call me. Okay, they can call. You can call me.
That's what they were doing. They were calling me.
They were calling me because they have questions. I'm not going to give you my number right now, but you can inbox me. You can send me a letter, or you can go to my website, madammoney.com. I want to thank LaShawn. Shout out to LaShawn for joining me for the Facebook Live. Shout out for everyone that participated and shared. If you have any questions, make sure you post them in the comments. If you're doing the replay, just hashtag replay. Let me know that you're watching. Please share this with others. Share it on your timeline. It's something that we need to talk about. And again, I'll talk tomorrow about life insurance and how to use it while you're still alive and make it a wealth building strategy. So this was fun. I'm going to go back and we're going to have, cheers.
Cheers.
We're going to finish our drinks. Shout out to my non-sponsored Tito's. They'll be a sponsor one day, I promise. All right. Thank you so much, Courtney, Venus. Thank you, Tyre. I really appreciate you all. Thank you for sharing. Life insurance you can use while you're living. Yes, absolutely. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. Hey, just remember, ignorance is not bliss. It's expensive as hell. I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. I'll see you on the next one.